I'd like to open up with a question to you all. When you think of the word different, what comes to mind? Just take a couple of moments to think about it. Strange, unalike, unique, abnormal. Perhaps these are just a couple of the words that go through your mind. Different. It's a word that has followed me around my whole entire life. And yes, I'm still quite young, but I've heard it from, Zoe, you're different, to, oh, Zoe, why are you doing things differently? And every time I heard those words, it always came with such a negative undertone. But why? Since when was being different or doing things differently such a negative thing? Where in our timeline did the script flip and being different came with such a negative connotation? For example, at the moment, I'm still trying to figure out what my fashion life is like. What do I look good at and what do I like wearing? And I have a friend who every time I put something on is like, Zoe, that's different. Now, she doesn't mean different in a good way. She means different that is not unique or special. She means it's bad. Now, I know I'm not always the best dressed, but just because my style is different, it doesn't mean it's bad. It's what is unique and makes me who I am. So, I share all of this to emphasize a very crucial point, that the word different does not need to mean bad, but in today's society, for some reason it does. So, I stand here today as a proud dyslexic individual. And yes, I'm different. My brain is physically wired up differently than most, and let me tell you, that is not a bad thing. Today I'm here to challenge the notion that different does not equal bad, and to encourage a more compassionate understanding for dyslexia. And in order to do so, allow me to take you on a journey, specifically my journey growing up with dyslexia. So I was first identified with having traits of dyslexia when I was in year 6. So I roughly would have been about 9 or 10 years old. And I have to say, I consider myself very lucky because most people don't find out until they're much older. And I remember it like it was yesterday because I had this teacher, a supply teacher, and she was short, had really short, dark, blonde hair, and she wore these really round glasses. And she noticed something wasn't adding up. So my spelling was terrible. To be honest, I had no idea what I was trying to spell half the time. And a bit of a life update, it has got better, although I do give spell check a run for its money most days. And my reading, I would completely skip sentences. I'm not talking words, I'm talking whole sentences. And it got worse. I would read something that wasn't even in front of me. So you can imagine, this was embarrassing. Well, actually, you know what? Embarrassing doesn't quite cut it. But because of this, all my peers looked at me differently, and it left me feeling super isolated. So after this, my teacher put me forward for a screening test for dyslexia because she noticed some things just wasn't adding up. So it wasn't a whole comprehensive assessment, but it gave me a reason as to why my spelling and my reading just didn't make sense. And it was because I was dyslexic. For me, this was a light bulb moment. You know when things just start to fall into place? Well, this was it for me. But interestingly enough, I didn't fit this so-called stereotype for dyslexia in schools, with being kind of shy and reserved. I was the complete opposite. I was loud, I was outgoing, I wanted to be a part of everything and be with everybody. So when this assessment came back saying I was dyslexic, it was a moment of vindication because all those teachers that didn't listen, they now had to listen and they had to take my struggle seriously. But school did truly become a battlefield. All I ever wanted to do was just talk, learn, and just understand like everyone else. But learning was difficult. I always say it was a one-way relationship. I would put everything into it, but receive hardly anything in return. And you can imagine this hurt, and it felt difficult growing up. But what also didn't help on this journey was when I would face really hurtful comments about my dyslexia. Imagine this. Hearing words like stupid, or phrases like, you can't spell, are you thick? These really stung in school. And yes, most times these did come from other students that had no idea about dyslexia, but it didn't make my life any easier. So I could understand these kids being mean due to the ignorance, but what I couldn't understand or accept was when adults felt that it was okay to say these hurtful things. As adults, especially in the educational system, you are role models. We look up to you and we follow by example. So if you're there making fun of my struggles, of course, everyone else is going to do the same. And that sadly did happen. But school for me was difficult, but dyslexia actually didn't stop there. My struggles did not stop at the school gate. Why? Because dyslexia can run in families, and I have an amazing mom who is also dyslexic. However, her dyslexia manifests its way slightly different to mine, and you could say it's a little bit more severe than mine. So luckily, growing up for myself, I at least was given support. Support she was not so entitled to, meaning the responsibilities of making scary phone calls, writing emails, and reading letters. At a young age, that fell down to my dyslexic self, so it was challenging. And you know what? Even as an adult, I still hate making phone calls. Like, I have a telephone voice down to a T, I would like to say, but it's scary. So you can imagine, as a kid, I just hated doing this. But the reality was, I just understood things better. Therefore, I had to be there for my mom. Dyslexia is so much more than just reading and writing. It can truly affect the way people live and do daily tasks. So let's actually dive into the amazing world of dyslexia. So, dyslexia falls under the umbrella term neurodiversity, and this was coined by Judy Singer in 1998, which simply refers to the different ways a person's brain will process information. We are all different. We all communicate and learn in different ways. Hence, we are all neurodiverse. However, there is a term called neurodivergent that you will come across, and this refers to anyone whose brains, quote unquote, divert from the normal way of thinking. That would include people like myself, people who are dyslexic, and anyone else who has ADHD, autism, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, Tourette syndrome, just to name a few. Dyslexia is often labeled as a learning difficulty. I personally prefer to refer to it as a learning difference. Yes, we do struggle with reading and writing, but it goes beyond that. Dyslexia is actually a neurological condition, meaning it affects our brain's ability to process information. And one aspect of dyslexia that often goes unnoticed is its impact on our short-term memory. So I'm really good at recalling stories from back a day. That's my strong point. But if you asked me what I had to eat last night, I couldn't even tell you. Why? My brain just processes information very different, and it's just a little bit slower to doing that. So let's actually explore that. And I'm going to get sciencey with you all. Behind me, you will see a picture comparing a non-dyslexic and a dyslexic brain. When reading and processing information, the non-dyslexic brain will use 3 areas to activate. Those areas being the Broca's area, the parietal temporal, and the occipital temporal. But if we look at the dyslexic brain, you'll notice something different. When we do reading, writing, memory, and processing, we rely on one single area. That's the Broca's area. So no wonder we struggle, because everything we do comes down to just that single part of the mind. Crazy, right? Here in the UK, it's around 10% of our population are dyslexic. That would roughly be about 6.5 million people. So do me a favor, everyone, just have a quick look around the room. Better yet, look to the people sitting next to you. That would mean statistically in this room, 1 in 10 people here today could be dyslexic, which is a crazy number when you think about it. But sadly, I say could, because it's severely underdiagnosed here in the UK, with 80% of our young children leaving school without a formal diagnosis. Another fact about dyslexia is it's equally as common as being left-handed. So for everyone you know out there who is a left-handed person, there's also a dyslexic person. So you're probably wondering, Zoe, why are you emphasizing so much about the prevalence of dyslexia? Well, it's because there's a lot of people that believe it does not exist. Imagine growing up being told, you can't be dyslexic, therefore your struggles mean nothing. Or, better yet, a favorite of mine, you went to university. What do you mean you're dyslexic? Yes, I went to university, but I'm still dyslexic. It's a lifelong condition. But there's a lot of people that believe it doesn't exist because it's not a physical disability. And on a personal note to that, if I was to be given a coin every time someone said, oh, Zoe, you don't look dyslexic, best believe I'd be in the Caribbean where it's nice and warm and not cold here. It's absolutely crazy. So I want to say something really loud for everyone in this room to hear. Dyslexia does not have a look. It is not limited to a specific race or people with freckles. Dyslexia truly does not discriminate. So I've spoken about what dyslexia is and some of the challenges that it may present. But I want to loop it back to that central theme that different does not equal bad. In fact, some of the strengths that we possess as dyslexic individuals are remarkable. From being able to problem solve, think creatively, and see the bigger picture, it's second to none. So just imagine harnessing all of those skills, and let's put it in a workplace setting. For example, during the work I do, we was going through some really low engagement numbers with our young people. So I sat down, and I decided to refresh everything. I looked at all the content we was delivering, and I switched it up. I made it fun, accessible, and more enjoyable for our young people. Why and how was I able to do that? Well, it was thanks to the creativity I possess, thanks to my dyslexia. Because one of my biggest strengths is actually being able to see that bigger picture. It's something us dyslexic people are absolutely amazing to do. And you know what came with this? My employer recognized and appreciated that my unique perspective brought a different outlook to things. Because I'm different, because my brain thinks differently, I'm able to breathe creative solutions into problems, and it leads to various successes. Like in this instance, our numbers increased, and we got really positive comments from the young people that we help. So why? Why do we selectively decide when different is good or bad? If my uniqueness contributes to positive results at work, it's acceptable. But in everyday life, my differences are looked down upon. Again, I ask you all, why? Why do we selectively choose when we should praise or look down on people's differences? We celebrate these differences when they prove advantageous, especially in the professional setting, but we criticize them on an everyday basis. Why do we do that? So we need to take much more steps on actually being able to celebrate these differences, no matter what setting we find ourselves in. And how do we do that? For me, it truly begins with compassion. So in 2021, I created the Dyslexic Movement page, where other dyslexic people could find out information about their dyslexia, as well as something that I find which is more important, find a community of people who understand them and accept them for who they are. Understanding and accepting dyslexia can be difficult. It's a journey we all go through, and all of our journeys are different. But what makes that journey just that little bit easier is compassion from others. So when I think about compassion, I think about being open-minded and kind to others. However, the true definition of compassion, as per the Oxford Dictionary, is a sympathetic pity and concern for the suffering or misfortunes of others. However, that does not convey what I want it to, as my dyslexia is not a suffering and it is not a misfortune. So I would hate for others to actually see it in that light. So if I was able to create my own definition of compassion, it would be being open-minded to help people see things from their perspective and fostering an environment where understanding can flourish. And in order to achieve that, I think compassion truly starts with that willingness to want to learn. And how do we do that? Well, that comes through conversations. I absolutely love talking to people, and I love sharing my stories. Why? Because I truly believe as people, we learn from those real life stories. We we love being captured in someone's story. And I think through these stories, we can really convey something about dyslexia. But it's in those stories I talk about how powerful words are. So allow me to just talk a little bit now. Words are powerful. Words have meaning, and they can follow you around your whole entire life. And as humans, we really do think about the negative stuff, especially when it comes to words. I know, to this day, I still think about the negative words that have been said to me growing up, especially about my dyslexia. So when speaking to people, remember that words have power, they have meaning, and they can truly follow you around your whole life. And when speaking, just exercise a bit of compassion. So, to get to the heart of the matter, dyslexia is not a flaw. It's a different way of navigating the world, and embracing that difference is key. And I stand here today as living proof that being different does not equal being bad. Never did I imagine, as a dyslexic person, I'd be writing a script or giving a TED talk. It definitely was not on the 2024 bingo card, but here I am. So, I want everyone to break this idea that being different equals bad. Being different is fine. Having a brain that is wired up differently is fine. I'm happy. No, scrap that. I am proud to be different, and I'm going to continue to challenge the notion that different equals bad. Thank you.